Hi everyone, welcome to Let's Talk UPSC, lecture number 4 of the Sociology Free Initiative for UPSC. Right, so in the last lecture, we have compared sociology with other social sciences like history, political science, anthropology, psychology, and economy. And before that, we have also seen the scope of sociology, right? And so this is the fourth lecture in the series, and in this basically we'll be comparing sociology with another subject called the common sense. So why is this necessity of actually knowing what is common sense? Common sense, as the name itself says, is very common in nature, right? When we do something that is so common that it is not considered to be taught to us by someone, but it is something that is inherently that is there in us. For example, if there is a candle that is burning here, right? If there is a candle that is burning here, obviously you know that the candle is very hot, and no one in their good sense of mind would go and touch the candle, right? So that is a common sense. Not touching the candle is a common sense. And for example, when you're crossing a road, okay, this is the road, and when you're crossing the road, you know to wait for the red light, and even if not to wait for the red light for the vehicles to stop, you know that you have to look both sides while crossing the road. You see the left, you see the right, and see again the left, and then you cross the road, right? So this is how you cross the road. So in that way, there are like hundreds of examples where common sense basically provides you a lot of insights, and you can basically trust your common sense when you do not know actually what is the reason, right? What is the exact science, or what is the exact thing behind it? And there are many other uh, commonsensical knowledge which are basically passed down to us. Okay, passed down to us. These are basically passed down. Okay, they are not necessarily taught to us by anyone, but when our parents do it, or when our siblings do it, okay, or when in our school our teachers do it, we basically end up following them, right? In many houses you might have seen that if the parents get up very early in the morning, okay, the children also have the habit or inculcate the habit at least till the time in their home. I'm stressing on this fact because many of us often change our habits once we move out of our house. So till the time they are in the home, children also have this habit of getting up in the early morning, right? Getting up early in the morning and doing their works. So that is how these become the sources. And the other sources can be the customs. Okay, for example, let us take the custom of marriage, right? So we know, even if we don't study what is a marriage in our school days, usually as such there is no subject that deals with it. But even in our class, in our time when we are students, we know that marriage has certain customs. It involves the bride and the bridegroom, right? And the bridegroom basically uh, ties a tali in the neck of the bride, right? So all this is a general commonsensical knowledge. No one tells us this. We see it, observe it, and then thinking, oh, this is the way in doing things, right? Because we go to tens of marriages or hundreds of marriages in our lifetime, we often encounter these things, and then we understand them on our own. So that is one thing. And the customs of in Hinduism, there is the custom of saptapadi, wherein you go 7 steps around the holy fire, right? So all this is something that is passed down through our customs. And sometimes common sense is also passed down through proverbs. Okay, so there are certain proverbs which caution you, if you do this you might end up falling in that way, or if you do that you might end up doing something, doing some other mistake, right? So in that way proverbs also basically guide you as a commonsensical stone, right? And then you have many other, sometimes your intuition itself. Okay, intuition itself is a common sense. How does intuition become common sense? For example, if you're doing something wrong, okay, you know that it is ethically wrong, right? Then your intuition obviously says don't do it, because if you do it, it is ethically wrong, and then you will feel guilty, right? So all this is nothing but common sense, right? So common sense is something that comes to us naturally. It need not be taught. It comes to us naturally, and that is why common sense becomes a very important teaching to us, because it is something that is very much different to many other subjects that we study in the school. Now, one must be wondering how sociology is different from common sense. So we have already done what is sociology, right? We have already gone through 3 lectures right now, and you might be familiar with what exactly is sociology. So sociology is nothing but the study of humans, the study of society, right? Or humans. S is important because it's a plurality again, right? From the first class I've been telling you, it's a study of the society, not a single person, right? So now, like the framework we followed, let us see how sociology and common sense are basically different from each other. So that is the format we've been following. First do the differences, right? So differences. Under this I'll give you certain examples through which you can understand that they are how quietly they're different. Okay, so for example, if we take sociology here and you take common sense on the other hand, common sense in the matter of education, this is something that we all will agree. Education, common sense says that if an individual is there and he gives his 100% efforts, he will definitely succeed in any exam. He'll definitely succeed in any exam. But sociology says even if the individual is there and he gives his 100% efforts, he might not succeed. He might not succeed. And why? Because there are several other conditions, like family issues, like home, whether you are able to study at the home or not, right? With income, whether you are able to go to coachings, right? The social background that you come from. People who have good social backgrounds and good connections, they get in a lot of insights about the exam. They get in a lot of mentorship from many other people who have already cracked this exam. But many of us come from a very low background or poor background and do not have so many resources, right? So resources, all of these also matter, is what sociology says. Whereas common sense says that if you give your 100% efforts and believe in yourself, everything will happen. But that is not how it happens in the real world, because all these things happen in the real world, right? In another example, you can take that of crime. Okay, crime. So common sense says that if a crime is committed, for example, a murder is committed, A killed B, so B is killed by A. So here it is because A wanted to kill B. B did something to A, so A took a revenge. This is how much common sense studies. But sociology says that A murdered B because B did something obviously, and also A was grown up in certain circumstances which made him a deviant. When we'll do deviant theory, we'll do this, Merton's deviance theory, we'll do clearly as to how sociologist basically thinks about crime and deviance, right? So that is another example. And then you also have some other examples like gender role, a key sociological concept again. Gender roles. So common sense says that boys like blue, girls like pink, boys shouldn't cry, no crying, but girls can cry, or girls are the only people who should cry. But sociology basically says that all this is just construction. However, common sense also doesn't tell us there is some other third gender. There's some other third gender. But here sociology tells these are not the only things that are there. There are many other genders as well, right? There are many other genders, and all these are not necessarily to be followed. This is what sociology tells, right? So sociology basically is a scientific study which comes up with proofs, whereas common sense is just there in your mind. It's just there in your mind because it's been followed from many years or from many decades, right? Now if we see how the people have reacted to common sense, the criticism for common sense comes from Emile Durkheim, who says that common sense should never ever be used in sociology. Right? So he was completely against it. Karl Marx, another famous sociologist and economist, he also did not like common sense because he thought common sense is the dominant group's ideology. Dominant group's ideology. So whatever the dominant group feels is right, that becomes right, and that is why it should be completely disregarded. For example, if you see the Varna system in India, the caste system, the Varna system, this Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, who gave in this? It was a customs, it was ancient customs, and now it has been followed as a common sense that every person born in is a person who belongs to one of these things. It's a common sense right now. So this is a dominant group's ideology. Who brought in this? The Brahmins brought in this. It's not the Shudras or the Atishudras who brought in this. The Brahminical concept of hierarchy is this. So that is a dominant group's ideology which should be completely done away, is what Karl Marx tells. However, there are others like ethnomethodology. Ethnomethodology is another subgroup you can call under sociology. So this ethnomethodology, basically, I'm sorry for the mispronunciation, it's very tricky. This ethnomethodology basically talks about how common sense is very important in sociology. And when is it important? When you're framing a hypothesis for sociology. When you're framing a hypothesis for sociological research, for example, you're conducting a sociological research and you're going to see how religion is affecting people's lives, how religion affecting people's modern lives, right? Modern life. This is your problem, right? So the hypothesis that you see is, you might, for the hypothesis statement, that is the starting, you might say that religion decreased due to increase in technology. So this is your hypothesis. So to frame this, how do you know this? You do not know any data right now. Hypothesis is the first step in a research. You do not know any data right now about religion or about technology. You just frame this hypothesis, and at the end, in the conclusion, you either conclude your hypothesis as right or you conclude it as wrong. So in framing this hypothesis, your common sense comes into the rescue, right? So that is where ethnomethodology basically formulates or tells that you need common sense while studying sociology, because you need to frame hypothesis. Without hypothesis, you can't conclude, you can't conduct a research, and you can't come to a conclusion, right? And then one another connection between both of them is in the process of socialization, right? Common sense basically also socializes an individual. It teaches an individual. The prior knowledge, the base foundation is given by common sense, and on this, the build-up is basically done by sociology, right? So these are the different ways in which common sense and sociology interact with each other, right? So remember the examples because they'll be useful for you, and also try remembering the nuances, the different nuances between them. The reason it is important is because it is mentioned as a separate topic in the sociology paper syllabus. So by this I end today's class. Feel free to comment if you have any doubts, and please share the videos so that they reach the maximum benefit, and also like and subscribe the channel if you like these videos. Thank you. Bye. Take care.